I want to start by reflecting a little bit on the sad news out of Kabul this we've all received, the loss of military and civilians there. The Coast Guard art program is all about volunteers, and we do volunteer. We give our time, our talent, and a painting. But today is a very serious reminder that those we honor in our paintings also may give their life for all of us. So with gratitude, I present this Coast Guard art program in their honor. Thank you. Now, my favorite subject to paint and to source of greatest inspiration is the United States Coast Guard. My favorite topic of conversation is the Coast Guard art program, also called COGAP, C-O-G-A-P. I'd never heard of that acronym until I joined the Salmon Gundy Club in 1999. I came to a COGAP committee event that was sponsored talking about the program. And I thought, well, this is really interesting. They had senior leadership from Coast Guard headquarters there, and they were talking about artists signing up. And I thought, well, this is very appealing. I think that I would like to support this. My dad was a World War II Navy veteran, and I think that maybe the water runs through my veins as well. So my application was accepted, and I was going on a trip that summer to Seattle, Washington. So I contacted community relations in Washington, D.C. about would it be possible for me to visit a ship in port? And what is there in Seattle was the Polar Star icebreaking vessel, huge. So I had the chance to actually have a tour of that. It's a massive ship. So my first year, I wanted very much to represent that in my art. Now, of course, I wasn't going to go to the Antarctic where the Polar Sea was stationed. But what's unique about the Coast Guard art program is that we are encouraged to use public affairs photography as our source. And what's helpful about that is that we can't be where all the action is. That gives a greater depth to the art program, the missions we can depict, the events that transpire that our art can honor and remember. So I got source for my first painting, and I call it While on Polar Patrol. You'll see this later on in the program, but that was the first thing I did, and it was based on this experience in Seattle. So quite often we have some kind of connection of why we choose what we do to paint. So all the Coast Guard artists, so you know, we're all volunteers. Most of us are civilians. There are a few that are Coast Guard active duty members, which I will highlight some of those tonight for you as well. We donate our time, our talent, and a painting. As any volunteer, this is like a gift from the heart. So this is art from our heart to honor the Coast Guard. So when I had a piece accepted, I frankly didn't have great expectations of what would happen with it. But I've since learned that the art in the Coast Guard art program is a traveling program. The art actually is a working body of art. And I will also illustrate that for you as well. As in many places, art has been now, of course, the last 18 months with COVID, that's greatly restricted art programs, art shows around the country. And even with the Mariners Museum, we're so fortunate to be able to meet you tonight via this Zoom webinar as versus, well, perhaps an on-site at the museum itself. So this is one way of our outreach can still get out there. Now let me share my screen and we'll get into more of this topic. So Salmon Gundy Club, as you've already heard us mention, is the proud sponsor of the Coast Guard art program. And that is key because, all right, so you're an artist and you said, gee, I'd like to send a painting to the Coast Guard. Well, there's actually a process, and that shouldn't be too much of a surprise. It is a government organization, it is the military, so there is a process. And the Salmon Gundy has been there from the beginning. This is the facade. It is 47 Fifth Avenue in Lower Manhattan between 11th and 12th Street in the Greenwich Village area. It's a gorgeous historic brownstone landmarked by the city of New York in 1969. It's also on the National Registry of Historic Places, I think since 1974. It's a Italianate style architecture. It was built in 1852, 53, that era. It was owned by Sarah and Arid Hawley, so the Hawley Mansion. And he was big in railroads as well as president of Pennsylvania Coal Company. Now, 3 important dates to keep in mind. 1790. Well, I think many of you know that already from this month being the month of the Coast Guard. 1790 was the year that the Coast Guard was established by the Secretary of Treasury, Alexander Hamilton. I must note that the big Broadway show of Hamilton never mentions this part of his work as creating the Coast Guard, but we can mention that here for sure. So he created the Coast Guard in 1790 and is the oldest seagoing service in the United States. And 1871 is a significant date because that was the date established for the Salmon Club. It's our 150th anniversary year. Now, Salmon has gone through a number of name changes. It was originally just the New York Sketch Class, then it became the New York Sketch Club, and over time it evolved into the Salmon Club. There has been some debate on where that name came from. Some say, well, it was Washington Irving's Salmon papers. Others say, well, one of the artist's wives made up a stew, a little of this, a little of that, of the Salmon stew. Either way, we've been the Salmon Club for many, many years. Now, 1981 is the founding year for the Coast Guard Art Program. So we are celebrating our 40th anniversary as well. Quite significant of what we've been doing. Our founder for the Coast Guard Art Program is George Gray. He was co-founder with Jim Ward of Community Relations in Washington, D.C. George had been doing work with the Navy prior to 1981. He has with what was called NACAL, Naval Art Cooperation and Liaison. Around 1980, the Navy gave up that program, and George, I think, really felt that patriotic pull to do something more for our military, and he and Jim Ward reimagined the Coast Guard Art Program. Excellent painter, a really renowned muralist. He was a Vietnam combat artist. This is some of George's work. See, he has this very elaborate, full, rich style murals, as well as precision line work. And this is a piece he did for the Coast Guard Art Collection as well. Now, so one little interesting piece of history about Salmon is it's had a long history with the military, even before George Gray stepped on the scene. So a little tidbit I found out that in 1918, the club spearheaded a national effort to produce rangefinder paintings used to train military gunners for World War I. The club provided the canvas and painting materials for these special purpose paintings. I think that's really quite a unique aspect of where our history is with this club. So, but in 1917, we bought the building, the Hawley Mansion, not from the Hawleys. They had since passed it on to someone else when they passed. So we have been in our Fifth Avenue location a little over 100 years. This is our marquee outside when the Coast Guard Art Program had the inaugural exhibition for 2021. Our poster features the George Gray Award winner, which is our version of Best in Show from 2020. So this is John Ward's painting, which you will see in better focus later on, but this is the announcement of the show and the club. The club has had a long relationship with Coast Guard, and it was given the Distinguished Public Service Award in 2011 for all their contributions and support of the art for the Coast Guard. Take you inside. Let's have a visit. Here's the entryway. During the time of COVID, we have not been at full capacity for events or staff, so it's been a great time to use it for beautification and getting ready for a better time and a better reopening. Our parlor. Now keep in mind, we're not a museum. We are an active art club. So there's the parlor. Here it is being used for an evening of painting, portrait work. So we have artists that come in, enjoy these opportunities to create with others. It's great camaraderie. This was 2014 when we did a major gut renovation of our upper gallery, in great need of a dressing up. And this is where it is today. It is one of the premier galleries in Manhattan. Many organizations beyond ours rent it out for their art shows. And of course, our members enjoy the prestige of showing in this beautiful gallery, as did COGAP. So this is the show from this summer. This is, of course, only a couple of the walls, but it gives you an idea how beautifully the art can be displayed in this wonderful, wonderful space. And the space can be transformed to party. And the lower level is also a gallery and 3 antique pool tables. One is cropped out of the picture here. So you know that this gallery and this one were additions. When the club and the artist bought the Holly Mansion, they added these 2 spaces to it to have grand gallery space. And this also is an active working space because we have monotype parties here. The gentleman on the left in the foreground is past President Robert Pillsbury, an excellent printmaker, and he guides us through and gives advice on printmaking for these monotype parties that we have. It's a great time, again, to come together as creative artists and enjoy and create together, make a piece of art. Our library with the famous collection of the palettes across the top and these used palettes by famous artists, as well as there's a mug collection here, right through there, that lit case. Dining room. Now you may know these 2 characters, Mark Wahlberg and Nick Dawes, Antiques Roadshow. Mark hosts it. Nick Dawes is often on as an appraiser for the show. They had a segment they did on Antiques Roadshow about the club's mugs. And these mugs were done, a lot of them, the original ones were done around 1894, and they were doing it to raise money to grow the club's library. So the artists would create these mugs and they would go off as an auction item and as a fundraiser. So the club has had a long history of artists supporting themselves through selling of their art and artifacts. Now, about the Coast Guard itself. United States Coast Guard by any other name. Now, I know that you had something before by, I think, Dan Wood earlier this month, who went through all the many steps of the Coast Guard and what they've been called, how they've evolved. Yes, it was Alexander Hamilton in 1790, but they were first called the Revenue Marine because they were out collecting revenue from imports coming into our country. And then the Revenue Cutter Service, finally the Coast Guard. And they kept merging other parts along with them, the Lighthouse Service, Life-Saving Service. But all this time, they were in the Department of the Treasury. So 1967, they were transferred to the Department of Transportation, and there they were. However, we sadly remember 2011, or 2001 rather, the events of 9/11 gave pause and a need for something else, Department of Homeland Security. So the Coast Guard was transferred to them, and they have been, I think, the core of that department ever since. So let's take a look at where the art goes. Obviously, one place is U.S. Coast Guard headquarters in Washington. This is a wall right outside the flag mess. So all the senior officers and their guests see this, get to have a sampling of the range of art and the range of missions are depicted in our Coast Guard art program. We've been at various functions. We've been in functions in Congress, around the country. This is a Commandant's change of command. I believe this was of Admiral Happ in 2014. And Coast Guard art was on display at his reception and featured in the program. Another interesting place it was the United States Navy Memorial in Washington, D.C. Now, if you may or may not be familiar with this, but if you know of the Lone Sailor statue, which is a memorial that a lot of people say looks an awful lot like President Kennedy, in the level below ground is this wonderful museum. So in April of 2014 to March of 2015, they had Year of the Coast Guard. I'm proud to say they included 10 Coast Guard art program paintings. And here I am standing next to mine. And this comes up with one of my first stories about art. What's interesting about creating art for the Coast Guard art program is it reaches out to those who we are actually talking about, who we are depicting. And this particular person is a physician's assistant. I did this in 2012. And with the internet, social media, art has a way of getting around. So it wasn't long after that the mother of this person contacted me, and she said, "That's my daughter you've painted, Rochelle Nolte." So Marianne wanted to know where the painting was, where could she see it? Well, it already left Salmon Gundy's inaugural exhibition, and I think at the time it might have been in storage till the next opportunity. Well, it turned out that opportunity was the Navy Memorial Show. So I let her know about it. It's on for a whole year. Who knows, maybe they'll get there. Well, October of 2014, there was a family wedding in the area, and they sent me a photo of maybe 6 to 8 of them that came to the Navy Memorial just to see this particular painting. So it was very touching that, we do this to honor those who serve, and it's particularly meaningful when they can connect with it. This is May of 2018, City Hall, New York. Coast Guard City was a declaration for the city of New York, which was only appropriate. We have major port of New York here. So may I say it was about time we became a Coast Guard city. So this is City Hall in the background, and this is City Hall from the inside. We were lucky to have about 8 paintings on easels. These are reproductions that were around City Hall. This is a nice view of the inside of City Hall. It's a really gorgeous, gorgeous building. So art was on display for this event. Here we are at Federal Hall National Memorial. And it's another building you might be familiar with because there is a picture that you'll recognize of George Washington, a huge statue at the top of the steps. It's diagonally across from the New York Stock Exchange. And I think a lot of New Yorkers actually think this is an office building and rarely go inside. And one time, Alexander Hamilton did have his office in Federal Hall. So it's a gorgeous building. These are Corinthian capitals. I believe the marble came from Italy. We put a show of COGAP art there. Usually when it's been at Salmon Gundy for a couple of weeks, it goes down to Federal Hall for a couple of months. And helping me put the show up on our left here is James Consor, who's a COGAP artist. You'll see his work later. This is one of our COGAP committee members and a member artist of Salmon Gundy, Johan Badescu. And this is Joe Goldman, a photography member of Salmon Gundy, all lending a hand. And this is the show, part of it, how it's on an upper balcony. Again, we put it out on easels. There's little identification cards with each one to educate the public on what they're seeing. And here it looks in the beautiful first floor rotunda gallery. They have visitation daily, very enviable of any public space. A lot of tourists have this on their list to check out Federal Hall, and they check out our art at the same time. So I think what we do is it's an education to the public what the Coast Guard actually does. We take it to the streets. This is the Washington Square Outdoor Art Exhibition. That happens twice a year, Memorial Day weekend and Labor Day weekend. This was a few years ago. I know these are not original paintings outdoors. We do reproductions. The good stuff stays inside. But it was a great way to take the art to the people. What's particularly interesting about this is you'd have one day a young boy and his father were there. He's looking at the work. And this one right here caught his eye and says, "Why has he got a gun?" I don't think his father knew quite how to answer that. There's this little silence. So I speak up and I said, "Well, to protect us from the bad guys." Then he went off to another one. "What's this one about? And what's that one about?" And his father noticed there were captions to each. So it was an education, not only for his son, but I think for the father as well, as to what the Coast Guard is doing in their many missions. And we also went to Europe. This is Zes Maritime Museum in Vlissingen, Netherlands. This was in the relationship with the Netherlands. This was in honor of the 400th anniversary of the Dutch discovery of Manhattan. Right here is Captain John Koster of European Coast Guard there to give a speech. Here we are inside. I also had the opportunity to speak to their guests. And behind me is Wilbert Weber, the director. And to the right on the screen is a wonderful Coast Guard artist, Leonard Vanderpool, also a George Gray award-winning artist. He's a citizen of the Netherlands as well as the United States, and he was the wonderful liaison that helped put this show together. So we had Coast Guard art in the Netherlands. And this is the beautiful gallery space we were there. Okay, so how does art get chosen for the collection? Well, first of all, there is an application to become a COGAP artist. We're looking for representational artists, people that will accurately tell the story of the Coast Guard. So once we've put out a call for entries, they are digital files that are reviewed by basically 3 categories. First is the U.S. Coast Guard Sector New York sends a couple officers over to review for accuracy. Are we depicting the Coast Guard properly? Some artists like to get a little creative, add a little extra items, but we're telling their story, not the artist's story. So we have to be true to what the Coast Guard does. Marianne Bader, Coast Guard Community Relations. Is it a current mission for the Coast Guard? Do we need it in the collection? There was a time when the Coast Guard did service lighthouses. They don't do that anymore. So lighthouses, as romantic as they are to paint, they aren't necessary for the collection. And also, equally important, is it a good painting? Is it quality work? So the president of Salmon Gundy Club usually sits in that role. This past year, it was Elizabeth Spencer, who took charge of guiding us through and making sure we had great art for the great show. Now, there are 11 missions presented in art. This was very difficult to go through the many, many paintings the Coast Guard program has, 250 artists, to select a few that could highlight these missions for you. What I like to say about what we do, as you see on the screen, we immortalize in our paintings and drawings those who courageously serve our country in the United States Coast Guard. And courageously certainly is a word ever more important today. Search and rescue. I think this is one very common to a lot of people. You hear about it on the news. So it's not uncommon to say, oh yeah, search and rescue. I know about that. This is Tom Hendricks' work, Safe in His Arms. This is from collection 2021, fabulous watercolor. He is the committee vice chair and is also the membership chair. He works with Marianne to review applications of artists. This is by Deborah Kearse, also from collection 2021, Friends. Again, a fairly common scene of the Coast Guard. There they are, you know, the floods, the waters that rise after hurricanes and great storms, searching and rescuing people and pets. She is from, I forgot to tell you that Tom is from West Town, New York. Artists come from all over the country. Deborah is from Broadlands, Virginia. Now this one goes back to that poster I showed you. This is John Ward's award-winning George Gray Award from 2020. It is Rescue Dear Galveston. You often see imagery of the Coast Guard and their recovery baskets, their search and rescue swimmers. This gives you an inside view of a helicopter. There's the basket back here. They medevaced a shipman, a crewman from a commercial vessel that was suffering a heart attack. And John Ward is from Saranac Lake, New York. Ports, waterways, and coastal security. Well, that's kind of a key thing, of course, Coast Guard and the coast itself. This is Stephen Lush. This is called Clearing the Deck. He is North Andover, Massachusetts. Now, this is Frank Gaffney. This is the impressive 2021 George Gray Award winner. Frank is from Mountain Lake Terrace, Washington. And let me just read you what he said about this what this painting is about. This is called Fast Rope Insertion Demonstrated. It's an oil, it's 16 by 20. What's depicted is a service member from the Coast Guard Maritime Security Response Team, those are called MSRTs, in San Diego, executes a fast rope insertion from a Coast Guard helicopter down to the deck of the cutter Steadfast. MSRT West service members undergo advanced training and are proficient in specialized techniques to operate alongside federal, state, and local partners to protect the nation from threats at sea and in the air. So you can see this is very specialized training, gorgeously represented by Frank. Migrant interdiction. We often hear of the stories of the overcrowded crafts at sea. This is by Hugh O'Connor, and he is from St. Clair Shores in Michigan, called 30 Miles from Punta Gorda in Cuba. This is my painting called Migrant at Sea. This is a 12 by 12 oil. And this shows you often what happens there. The Coast Guard is sometimes called in for first a search and rescue, because even before they get to US waters, you're looking at something, it's a makeshift raft at best. It looks like oil drums with wood lashed to it. There was a sail off of here that had been torn away. So first it's a search and rescue. And that is what's going on here. Now, I was very fortunate, again, through the use of social media, Coast Guard information, that, at the time, this was from District 7 in Miami. No one knew who this person was. And Public Affairs did a piece on this because apparently they didn't have much publicity about this type of operation they did. Well, no sooner does it hit the airwaves than this person, who became known as Sean Fearing, contacted me. And responding to our conversation about him being the crew member in my painting, Migrant Sea, this is what he wrote to me. Thank you for everything you do to bring our mission to the public. More importantly, I'm able to show this to my kids, who always wonder why I'm gone from them so much. They just lit up with joy when they saw your painting. So then I asked Sean for permission to quote him, and he said, "You absolutely may use what I said. Your work has made my last 12 years of doing this job." So again, we reach out to the Coast Guard and honor them in our paintings. And it's such a give back and thrill when we hear back from them what it means to them. So this made my day. Drug interdiction, I think that's also a well-known topic to the public. Again, this is Tom Hendricks' fabulous watercolor, valiant effort. And I think it looks very familiar. This is from his 2020 collection. You may have seen videos of the submersibles being taken over by Coast Guard small craft in pursuit. What you don't often see, though, is the eyes in the sky. Again, another beautiful one from Frank Gaffney, Stopping a Go Fast. So it starts out with a lot of spotting in the air, followed by the chase in the water. And the Hitron, that is Helicopter Interdiction Tactical Squadron. That's what Hitron means. And I'm very fortunate to say that I've met members of Hitron, and they actually gave me, let's see, where can I put this? It's their unit coin that looks exactly like that badge. So it's really quite an honor to know how skilled these people are, that they are out there and working very hard every day, very dangerous area. In marine environmental protection. Oil spills, well, they're there to protect that, clean them up, and practice in doing this. So this is by Leonard Vanderpool, who you met when we were in the Netherlands. This is called Training for All Hazards. He is an artist from Brooklyn, New York. This is another one about the waterways protection. This is by Bob Bryant from Gig Harbor, Washington. Entanglement protection on Cure Atoll. There's a lot of junk, dare I say, in the waterways, old fishing lines, debris, and this is a great hazard to our marine environment. So the Coast Guard is always on patrol, really cleaning up after, dare I say, us. Living marine resources, another of Frank Gaffney's work. Turtle release. And this one is by Acacia Anglin, Returning Home. And what you see in that big canvas is a 725-pound female whale, and it ran aground, and they are putting it back in the water. Acacia is actually married to a Coast Guard member who is also a Coast Guard artist. It might be our only Coast Guard husband and wife artist team. And this is actually being done on a buoy tender because the whale is, of course, such huge size. Marine safety. Isn't that critical? This is by one of our newer members, or newer pieces rather, by Kristen Hosbein. She's been in the program a while. I didn't mean a new member, but a new piece. This is from 2021, and you can see she's wearing a mask, the coastie here. So inspections never stopped. COVID came, but inspections continued. This is a very poignant piece to have in 2021. And this one is by Marine Science Technician Thomas Unger. He's a Coast Guard active duty. It's called Fire Drill. And again, it's protection, marine safety, inspecting for safety gear. And his medium actually is coffee. Actually, coffee. Amazing what you can do with a cup of coffee. Aids to navigation. That's familiar to a lot of you who may do some boating. This is by Charles Van Horn, who's from Glen Head, New York, Coast Guard cutter Spar. This is a weather buoy, and this is a buoy tender. So you get the size of the massive pieces out in the sea and the massive boats that take, see this cutout here? This crane. So now this all makes sense. This is James Consort, who you met at Federal Hall, ready to replace. This is what a buoy looks like out of the water. For the most part, the public sees this from basically, I'd say, the neck up. This is all under the water and all the chains. Huge piece of equipment comes on board these buoy tenders. Other law enforcement. Well, there's a lot of categories there that this can cover. This is by Ken Stetz. This was also in 2021, keeping a watchful eye. A lot of activity by different countries around the Arctic Circle, different regions. So it prepares a joint force to respond to crises across the Indo-Pacific. And Ken Stetz is from Neptune, New Jersey. Another one, now this is by machinery technician Jason Newman. He is Acacia Anglin's active duty husband from Port Angeles, Washington. So this again is about detecting and monitoring illicit trafficking. Defense readiness. Sometimes you have to just watch and be prepared and be defensive and ward off the unexpected. So this is, again, a very timely piece by Emily Waldman for 2021. See the mask again. This is the U.S. naval ship, the Comfort, coming into New York Harbor. We had a massive outbreak of COVID last year, as many country did. Hospitals were overrun. The Comfort came to give additional space to us, so there was an escort for the Comfort by the Coast Guard. Another place the Coast Guard shows up, this is the waterways around space launches. This is by Alan Rael, Shuttle Launch Security. He's from Santan Valley, Arizona. You'll also notice that quite often around Washington, D.C., the Potomac area, the waterways there for any national event, the Coast Guard is patrolling as well. And ice operations. I think, again, it's probably something very familiar. This has got a great story, though, too, because Lieutenant Commander Ken Sauerbrunn was Lieutenant Sauerbrunn when he did this painting. He was in Sector New York at the time, and they were on a break in Poughkeepsie in this icebreaker going up the Hudson River. So this is from 2015. Now, last month, I was in Kodiak, Alaska with Coast Guard industry partners. I'm on the bridge of the Alex Haley, and the XO says to me, Karen Loew, and I'm thinking, who in Kodiak can possibly know me? I don't even have a name badge on. Well, it was Lieutenant Commander Ken Sauerbrunn. He's now the commanding officer, or the XO rather, of the Haley. So we met in Kodiak after meeting 6 years ago in New York City. Of course, I asked him what's he painting for 2022. He thinks he'll do something. I hope so, Ken. I hope you're watching, and I hope your crew is proud of your fine artwork. Kirk Larson, his work on clearing the way. He's from Hicksville, New York. And this one, last one, is by Tom Hendricks, Gnome Ice Landing. And this one, again, I think we educate the public about the Coast Guard. You see this right here on the wheels of the helicopter. Landing on snow and ice takes a very special skill of the pilot of the helicopter, but also added skis of sorts to the helicopter itself. Very interesting part. Takes a lot of effort to make that happen. Now that we have the art, we also like to have a program to celebrate the art. So this year at Salmon Gundy on July 1st, we have what we call an acceptance ceremony, where the art is conveyed from the artists on behalf from the club to the senior leadership of the Coast Guard, who accepts it. So our MC for the program that particular evening was Captain Zita Merchant from Coast Guard Sector New York. Sponsoring our wonderful reception was the New York Council of the Navy League. Frank Russo, president, gave some remarks, and it was a very festive occasion because of their ongoing support of our program. And the senior leadership for Coast Guard was Rear Admiral Joe Raymond, who accepted the art on behalf of the Coast Guard. great attendance. So we're always a full house for these events. And again, you see more of our club, this upper gallery, the walls surrounding with the art from the Coast Guard art program. A couple years ago, we had what I call a bucket list items for me. Admiral Carl Schultz was our accepting senior leadership officer. You don't get more senior than the commandant. So it was a great thrill to have him come to New York and be there with us. Believe me, it was standing room only. Marianne Bader, where would the program be without her? She is our artist's best friend, organizes these amazing shows that we have every year, helps pull the collection together, helps promote it around the country to various venues. And I'm sure that she was in touch with Julie to set this one up for us. Marianne Bader, wonderful woman. Okay, the George Gray Award. You met George earlier, and in his honor, Best of Show is called the George Gray Award. There's a jury for that, and it includes always the senior leadership of the Coast Guard. This year it was Admiral Raymond. This year also included a member of our Salmon Gundy Club, Nicholas Dawes, who is our chairman of the board, and an outside juror, Alice Dare Nickel, you may also remember from Antiques Roadshow. And their choice was the Frank Gaffney painting, which we talked about earlier, presented by Jacob Collins, our club president, and Rear Admiral Raymond. At this time, I'd like to read to you what Frank had to say about his time with COGAP and what it means to him. As a boater for over 30 years, I've been aware of the role that the U.S. Coast Guard has played in preserving and providing security to that environment, to boaters, and to our country. This is only a part of their story. As a Coast Guard artist, I was sent on 2 deployments and was able to observe and document other aspects of their mission during both humanitarian and maintenance operations. Highlighting the skills and commitment of Coast Guard servicemen and women is of supreme importance to me in planning my paintings. Research and composition can take more time than the actual painting and is well worth it. Being joined into the Coast Guard art program is an honor, a special achievement that fills me with pride and the knowledge that I've achieved my goals. Receiving the Coast Guard Award for Artistic Excellence is an even greater honor and is one of the more outstanding achievements of my career. Frank Gaffney. And I want to also thank Frank for his contributions over the years to the Coast Guard art program. We are proud to have you as our member. Every artist receives a public service award. This shows Chrissy Murphy receiving hers, and all the artists in attendance would receive likewise. This is her painting and the commendation. This is the group of artists that came to celebrate with us July 1st. And this group, the bottom group, are those who helped hang the show. This is the COGAP committee, as well as a couple volunteers. This is Chris Nunley, our director of operations of the club, Annie Pat, Paul Backalenick, volunteer, Bill Keena, Dale Irwin, Stephen Margolis, myself, and Gloria Sampson Knight. The top photo is July 1st. We clean up pretty good. We presented Rear Admiral Raymond with a book to remember his evening with us. And one person not in the bottom photo I want to point out is Tom Hendricks, whose work you've seen earlier, and he's our vice committee chair. And back to my beginning of where I began with the Coast Guard. This was my, while on Polar Patrol, my very first painting for the Coast Guard art collection. I had a deployment in 2002 to a very momentous place, Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. And this is Gitmo, Port Security 305 from Fort Eustis, Virginia, was there to provide security for all the ships going in and out of Guantanamo Bay and Guantanamo River. My last deployment was in 2019 to the Maritime Law Enforcement Academy in Charleston, South Carolina. And there I observed something very interesting, that our Coast Guard trains with the Canadian Royal Mounted Police, as well as the Ontario Provincial Police. We share a watery border, and it depends on what side of the water you're on, whose rules you have to observe when boarding vessels on there. So on the left, you see them calling up. These are like, this is, dare I say, in the yard. They have various assets that the Coast Guard and the Canadians can actually board. So they're calling up to announce a boarding. This is a different one where we have the Ontario Provincial Police, Coast Guard in the background, and they're making a mock arrest. And this is, the guy in red is the instructor. And on the right here, we have the mat room where they learn protection of self and weapon in this exercise. Again, the man in the red is the instructor. I wanted to thank the Maritime Law Enforcement Academy for hosting my visit. So the originals, of course, are with the permanent collection, but I had reproductions printed for them and sent down. They are on the wall opposite Captain Solomon's office in a conference room. So they have a very prominent place, again, helping educate the public on what the Coast Guard does. And my last piece, and I like to end with this one because to me, it represents that other unofficial mission of the Coast Guard. This is called a mission of compassion. And I think that is so emblematic of what the Coast Guard does in so many of their roles. This was following the hurricane, the earthquake in Haiti in 2010. And it's rather sad to think that once again, Haiti's been erupted and destructed. And of course, the Coast Guard are down there once again, lending a hand in a humanitarian and in a practical way as well. I want to thank all the artists of the Coast Guard Art Program. Unfortunately, it was impossible to show all the art since there's so many hundreds of pieces in the art, but I thank them all for their contributions to the Coast Guard collection and to these particular ones whose work I've highlighted today. And that is the conclusion of my presentation.
That was just fabulous, Karen. I want to go on a field trip to see all these paintings. We had a question, how many paintings are in the collection in total, I guess, forever and ever?
Right now, there's probably roughly 2,000. They span a lot of years, but each year we get in an average of 30 to 40 pieces. Like for instance, collection of 2021 had 32 new pieces, 26 artists donated, so a couple of them gave more than one. So it's a kind of an average, but it's an ongoing growing collection because every year we have a new collection.
And what's the process, like the timeline for 2022? Where are you with submissions, and when does the jury convene?
Well, right now the prospectus went out probably within a couple of weeks ago for the call for entries. It's really typical of any art show. If you're an artist, you realize, oh, there's that call for entry. And the Coast Guard Art Program has that same process. So if you're already a member of the Coast Guard Art Program, you've got an email from Marianne Bader that shows a timeline in it and some suggested subjects. Perhaps there's something that the Coast Guard is looking to augment the collection. I know last year it was a lot about the Arctic region. Mm-hmm. So the timeline is anywhere between now and like the very beginning of 2022. She looks for selections to be made, digital files to be emailed to a server so that they can be gathered for the jury of selection. The jury of selection usually meets in late February. So we are collecting art between now and up until the time they review. So kind of a loose deadline. Some artists, I mean, a lot of artists are, they really want to do something, but other work gets in the way. And so they'll say, well, can I possibly have an extension? So Marianne's pretty good about that. We want to encourage as many as possible to contribute to the work, contribute their work to the collection and to enrich the program because of that.
Well, and it was wonderful that COVID didn't stop you from having the exhibition in 2021. I'm sure that was a lot of work to make it happen. And it looks like it was a wonderful evening. So I want to go on a field trip. I think Howard should send us on a field trip to the Salmon Gundy Club.
Well, it's a pretty good place to visit.
Absolutely. Michael is asking about the painting Clearing the Way. He says it was 110-foot WYTM, whatever that means, Michael. How can he get more information about that painting?
Well, at the end of so let me back up one. For more about COGAP, you see this down here, Coast Guard Art Program. There is a connection to a link to what's called DIVIDS, DIVIDS. And a lot of the art up until, I think 2000, maybe 16 is on there. And it is when we as artists give the painting away, we do something also very unique. We also give the copyright away. So it's free to use by the Coast Guard as they wish. It is free to use for people to download an image and make their own print. It is not, however, free for somebody to then sell that print, but we want the art out there and we encourage people to then get that art. So I'm trying to find out which one that exactly was, but perhaps I can join up with you later on and maybe get a little more information about that. Was it Clearing the Deck? Was that the name of it?
Clearing the Way.
Clearing the Way.
And I don't recall the artist's name myself, but if you get the information to me, I can get it to Michael if I see his email here.
Absolutely.
And Paul did want to know, is there a website to see all the paintings? Are they all up there or just the past few years on the site you pointed out?
Unfortunately, they're not all up there. You know, as anybody who manages a website knows, it's an awful lot of work. The Coast Guard has a lot of priorities, and I'm very, very grateful that they value and appreciate the Coast Guard art program. But it frankly is not a priority to upload all of our images all the time. So that's not always possible. But I did find where Clearing the Way is. That's from the 2021 collection, Kirk Larson. So that would probably not be on the website yet, but I know the artist, so maybe we can put them in touch with each other.
Well, that's fascinating about the husband and wife team. That's a talented pair for sure. And I was thrilled to see Fort Eustis represented. That was your painting, wasn't it, Karen?
Yes, I represented them when they were down in Guantanamo Bay. It was very interesting. They actually were first in New York Harbor after 9/11. Our sector in New York needed additional reinforcements here. So PSU 305 actually came to New York and were here for a while. And then they went down to Guantanamo Bay. Now you got to realize a lot of these port security units are made up of reservists. So you had firefighters and police officers all in this, and they had been to New York. Then they went down to Guantanamo Bay. They were on quite an extensive time away from their families when they did all this for us. So yes, that was Fort Eustis, Virginia, that was part of port security.
Wonderful. We thank Marianne Bader, who I hope she's watching this evening with us, for contacting me a good while ago, that then put me in touch with Karen Loew and Frank Gaffney. And it's just been a beautiful presentation, many positive, lovely comments, which I will share with you, Karen and Frank. But what a nice evening to look at gorgeous art that is really volunteer driven. And what did Marianne say? It's volunteer patriotism that you all are doing with your
I think that's the quintessential patriotic volunteerism.
That's it.
If there's a couple of, well, it works either way. If there's a couple of moments left, I also have some quotes from I often ask COGAP artists, why do you paint for the Coast Guard art program? So can I give a couple quotes?
Please, yes.
First of all, I think that, bravery is a Coast Guard career, and recording it for posterity is kind of the duty and honor of every Coast Guard artist. So our works are like a visual and emotional thank you for the ever inspirational Coast Guard. So for instance, Kristen Hosbon, whose work was in this particular event, marine safety, she and I were in Kodiak together. I said to her, so why did you join COGAP? She has a sailboat, I believe, and is an avid sailor, and really appreciates what the Coast Guard does for the boating community. So she looked at it as a way of a thank you, a way of giving back to all that they have done for the boaters. Now I have Steve Lush, whose work was in the program tonight. And he says, Coast Guardsmen are individuals that thrive on being relied upon in tough situations. It is truly a unique American humanitarian force that continually exhibits individual excellence. What person or persons in a tough situation doesn't feel an overwhelming sense of relief when a Coast Guard boat, ship, or aircraft shows up? I mean, it's just a beautiful comment. So true.
So true. Absolutely. Well, thank you, Karen, again for what a lovely presentation. And as Jenna put in the chat, our next evening lecture is on September 30th. We will explore the Gulf of Mexico. A Maritime History with John S. Sledge, a lovely illustrated book full of beautiful paintings, and it is part of our celebration for National Hispanic Heritage Month. So we hope you'll join us on September 30th. And Karen, we will see you down the road, if not up in New York City in that lovely place. And thank you all for joining us, and have a great evening. We appreciate your being here.
I'm most grateful. Thank you for this opportunity, Julie. Thank you for the
Thank you.
Maritime Museum.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.